Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today is Phil Aston, and but I've had Phil on before, and I've asked him on again because he's actually been working from home for a long time. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the tools and the techniques that he uses. Before we go into that, Phil, where can people get hold of you?
Well, Tim, they can get hold of me at my main website, which is geniusloci.co.uk. We've been doing what we do, which is digital marketing support, since 2004, when we moved to Cornwall from Birmingham.
Right. Okay. And just spell Genius Loci for me, because some people who watch this, English isn't necessarily their first language. And for people like me, I can't spell anyway in English.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, one of the things when you pick a name for your business should be that when you say it out on the radio, people can understand it. So we did really well there. So Genius Loci is Genius, as in genius, and then Loci is Loci. It's actually Latin for spirit of the place, which Sue, my wife, who writes music all about this location where we live, thought it was a good name for our umbrella business.
Fantastic. And Sue Aston is worth Googling anyway for her music and her stuff.
She's far easier to say out on the radio. She's just SueAston.com.
Yes. So there's a little plug there for Sue as well. So your story is that you actually moved from Solihull.
Yeah.
And anybody in England will detect your slight Solihull accent.
They will.
And you moved down to Cornwall.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, actually, I mean, Sue was part of that because she started writing music and released an album, and I was designing websites and doing SEO. And I was working for WPP at the time as a director. And although we were promoting Sue's music, we started to get businesses from Cornwall saying, could you build a website for us, or could you help us with our online promotion? And I suddenly thought we could make a jump here into the unknown and actually find ourselves with a few clients already on the doorstep. And we just took a chance. We had a bit of savings by basically telling fibs to the local bank about we were going to buy a house and commute from Penzance to Solihull, and they went with it because it was at that time in the UK's history when they were just lending money for any reason. And we just gave it a go. So that's how we ended up here.
So you've got two sons, and you basically picked up and went down to Cornwall.
Yeah, they were just about to start senior school and middle school. And we just thought, let's do it. So the failure was not an option. This had to work. There was no way back. Everybody thought we were nuts. And we did a business plan, and I think I've said before, and it went completely wrong within 12 weeks. Everything didn't work. But we just had to we had to adapt. When we moved,
it's kind of similar to what's happening now at the moment with COVID-19, which is, everything that you had a plan. So as Mike Tyson said, wasn't it, something about, it's great having a plan until someone punches you in the mouth. And it's so, all of a sudden you've gone from this is the plan, or we execute, to shit, what we're going to do.
Yeah, we had a whole raft of skills. We realized that between us, we were quite talented people. So we knew we could do. I was also, in my spare time, I was a yoga teacher. So I thought, well, I'll do yoga weekends. I was designing websites. I was a photographer. I knew a lot about SEO then. It was, it's still very new. I knew all about all these things. But what I hadn't taken into account was that where I was coming from was a very busy metropolis with a lot of people in it. And I was moving to somewhere where there weren't many people at all. So, and also at that time, it's hard to believe, but in 2004, the internet in Cornwall was word of mouth. You went to the local chip shop, and while you're waiting for them to deliver your chips, you'd say, do you know anyone who can fix my washing machine? Or do you know anyone who, you'd just ask. You wouldn't actually go and Google anything. So we were the first people to set up a digital agency in the whole of Cornwall at that time. And a lot of the things that we had, we were going to do, build so many of these, help so many of these. It just didn't happen. So we had to really go back to the beginning and not look at how much money we got in our savings, because that would have just scared us, and just think this is going to work. We're going to do this by basically just networking. We're going to just talk.
And you started, I remember you said to me that you started helping people.
Yeah. We started to, what we did was we started to listen to people.
Right.
I think where we went wrong was we came down with a business plan thinking this is what we're going to do, and this is going to make us money, and this is going to help our business thrive and our family also thrive. But we decided in our own minds what people wanted. What we hadn't done was actually think about, we need to talk to people to find out actually what they want and what.
Because I remember you telling me about how you were working on a project when you were in Solihull, and you said to everybody, "Do you fancy working at the weekend?" And they all went, "Yeah, we get overtime." And you came down to Cornwall and you said, "Hey, people, do you not fancy working at the weekend?" And they went, "No, I'm going surfing. Why would I work at the weekend?"
And that happened across so many things. Like Sue played violin. She said, "Well, I could teach violin." And I said, "Well, I could do my yoga stuff here, and I could teach yoga." As soon as the sun comes out, and nobody turns up because they'd rather be somewhere else. It was a complete culture shock in that respect. And so it was. We had to listen to what was needed, what was required, and then and especially to get us off the ground locally. Otherwise, it could have been obviously a big problem. But again, our mindset was it was going to work.
Yeah. So fast forward to today, you've done a whole bunch of things. You work from home.
Yeah.
And you've done a whole bunch of things to basically adapt to working from home.
Yeah.
But even though you work from home, you walk to work.
Talk
me through that.
There's a reason for that, and it's self-discipline. I am not a brilliantly self-disciplined person. I'm not a morning person. I know there are some people who get up and go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're just ready to roll. I'm not that person. And I realized that even if I put lots of client meetings in my diary, most of the time I'm working from home. And it's too easy to just come down the stairs in your dressing gown and just with your cup of coffee and sit in front of the computer and just kind of casually open a few emails and think, and then I felt, because of my background where I had to wear shirt and tie and stuff, I needed something that gave me the discipline that I'd left home and gone to work. So I started to realize, well, why don't I have to get up, get dressed, and then I go for a walk, and that's my commute. And then I come back, and then while I'm walking wherever I've gone, and I'm lucky I can go down to the beach, for instance. I come back and I've thought about what my to-do list is percolated in my head, and I sit down and I'm ready to go. And sometimes I reverse this. Sometimes I might walk home from work then to make sure I'm not just faffing around going through social media feeds. I'll think, right, I'm going to walk around the block, and then I've walked home. I've commuted back to being not at work. So that's a huge part of helping me with creativity and making sure I keep to my own internal deadlines, which means that if it's a certain time that I'm going to walk home, I'm going to leave the house to walk back home. I know it sounds a bit odd, but it means I know that I'm finishing at 5:30 because I'm going out and I'm coming back. Even if I've only gone out for 30 minutes, there's a line in the sand that says we're done.
Yeah, we often either go out for lunch or at least go for a walk. We happen to be we're lucky in a place where we are in West London, which is that there's a lot of open spaces. Not quite the same sort of breathtaking landscape where you are, but it's urban park rather than anything else. And I find that really useful for at lunchtime and creativity. And I also I'm a big tea drinker, and for me, quite often it will be I will do something, finish it, and then make a cup of tea, and that in itself is part of the process of getting ready for the next thing that you're going to do. Otherwise, you can end up sitting there working till 8 o'clock at night, and you've worked 11, 12 hours, taken no breaks, and you go, "Hey, I'm really tired."
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment, with the current situations, many people watching this will find that they can't go out, but they are working from home. You need to have something that gives you a point in time that's a break. So if you're into music and you're someone who certain types of music you can still work with. I know some people like to work in silence. I mean, in fact, some of the tasks I do, if I'm doing coding or any complicated technical SEO, I like it to be quiet. But if I'm doing something creative, I like to have some music on the background. So if I put on a CD, that CD is going to be about 40 minutes to 50 minutes long. So I work to the duration of that album.
That's a good
and
idea.
Then so whatever happens, if I get to it and I've not quite finished, I have a break. It's kind of counts down in the background, so I know that it's making sure I do bursts of creativity or work, and then I have, like you said, go and have a cup of tea, so I refresh or take my eyes away from the screen at the very least, to have a kind of mini break.
And that's probably one of the reasons why CD is better than vinyl, because with vinyl you'd have to turn it over, wouldn't you? And
yeah, you've got to do something that only requires 20-minute burst of activity, and it's so a CD works much better. You've actually got you've used a whole load of tools, and I'm actually going to explain something to people, because so Phil was actively involved in Google Plus, and Phil did a whole bunch of things in Google Plus, which in the end, Google used to ring him up and say, how did you do that? Like he would do concerts from his house, and Google had actually done so Phil was copying a concert that Google had done. And Phil went and basically did it and then they rang him up and said, how'd you do that? They said, well, I just copied you. And they said, well, actually, we didn't run one. It was actually, we played the track and they mimed to it. Yeah, that's correct.
So Phil actually worked out the technicalities. So one of the things that you're very good at is applying your brain. And I think that's sometimes brains, because I know that you work very closely with Sue as a team. And she acts as a sounding board for you and the way that you work. But so talk us through some of the things that you do, because we actually went down this rabbit hole of talking about certain things before we actually came on. So we talked about cameras and microphones and stuff. So just give us an overview about what you used, the tools, the techniques, and stuff like that.
Well, one of the things that for us at that time when we moved down, as beautiful as it is where we are fairly isolated, and to reach any large groups of people is really, really difficult. For all the networking events I might go to, I might have to drive for an hour and there'll only be 15 people or 6 people there. And we wanted to break out of where we were. So when social media came along and our internet connection became better, and we were on Google Plus then, we realized we could talk to producers in San Francisco and someone in Australia and get tips on what we wanted to do. And then with the Hangouts as they were then, we realized we could give this a go. Sue realizing as well along the lines that she was finding it very hard to find someone to teach the violin, should she want to. She suddenly decided to use the internet and social media, and she started getting people coming over from Japan, Italy, and Canada, because they found her online. And we started to do the concerts because we realized we didn't have to actually travel very far. And although Sue's a performer, we're both quite introverted, really. We're quite shy people, but we realized through tech, we could reach people and chat and build relationships and build trust by using the technology. And it's one of those things, it's not sticking to one particular bit of equipment or one platform. It's thinking about the idea and what you want to get out there, and then looking around to see what you could use to help you, rather than using the platform or the technology as your limiter. I don't know if that's made sense, but I think some people...
yes, because some people come to me and go, well, we use Hangouts or we use Zoom, and that kind of limits you. An old-fashioned metaphor would be the side of an LP or the length of a CD limits you in terms of what you can, what your creativity.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so I mean, someone asked me the question the other day, what do I use when I do, like, sometimes I do album reviews for my other side project, and now spinning.co.uk, and someone asked me, what do you do when you're when you're showing people a box set or something, what is that? And I said, well, it's not one thing. I might be using an overhead webcam, but there again, I might use my iPhone, or I might use my SLR.
So talk through what kit you've got and what you use it for.
I use primarily.
So you're currently shooting your face with a Logitech.
It's a
920.
Yeah, it's a 920, and this is one of the first ones I bought. It's even got a little smiley face on to remind me to smile. And we have several of those, and because you can just switch from one camera to the next. So if you want to explain something, we learned this from using Google Plus. We used to have when we did the live shows, we'd have a close-up shot of whoever was playing, if it was Dan, and then we'd have another shot of the sound desk, because we thought that was a bit interesting, quirky, and then we have another one to actually talk through. And so these are very common and very, very good. There is a new version now called a BRIO, which is a 4K streaming version, which I'm not using at the moment, but they are very good cameras, and they work very well with Macs. They work very well with Microsoft. In fact, they're supposed to work better with Microsoft, but I've found them, and I used to be both a Mac and a PC person, but I think they're great, and they're very adaptable. The one I've just shown you is on a little tripod, but They clip onto the top of your screen. You can buy a little extension lead, so you can.
And they're like £100.
They're about between £1,700. Yeah.
Okay, and what microphone and stuff are you using?
I don't use the microphones that come with these cameras. These cameras come with HD audio, but because they're connected to the lens, if you've got the camera somewhere off, the sound will be different. So for that, my main, you can see it's the Yeti.
I got one of those, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got
this is a blue something.
Yeah. The blue one, and there's also one called a Snowball, isn't there? But I think the one that you've got there and the one I've got is probably the best, I think, for USB audio. I mean, we do use some of the mics sometimes when we're doing live music, but for just podcasting and doing streaming or whatever, I think the Blue Yeti is a superb microphone.
Blue Yeti, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're shooting this on crowdcast.io, which is something I use to get the two faces, and that spun out. There was a thing for 6 months called Blab, which is where you all got on and you could talk to stuff. And I quite like having and I still haven't got. I believe I can do this on Zoom, but I still haven't worked it out. But
I think there's so much more choice now. I mean, when we started, there was Hangouts, and Google, for whatever reason, lost interest, but there was a time in Hangouts where you could do all sorts of things within that software. They let people build plugins for it, and you could do lots of stuff. But obviously now it's just a very, very basic video conferencing tool. Although it is quite easy to bring guests in and let people talk. It's still quite good for that. But I find that I tend to use whatever my client or the person I want to talk to, whatever they're most familiar with, I usually try and adapt to them rather than try and send them links to new software unless I really have to. So I'm quite happy to do things on Skype or, a Messenger video or FaceTime, just to talk, but if it's a more formal thing, we use a lot of streaming software. We've used, StreamYard, which we experimented with that, but we use Ecamm Live, which is a Mac only application, but it's excellent. And it's like having a little TV studio. You can use all sorts of things with it, but we are also moving to use Zoom as well. And
so you've got a son that's using Teams, Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
I was on a call this morning on Teams. It was there.
And we've got my other son uses Slack. So I mean,
we use Slack. I've got it switched off. Otherwise, people send me messages while I'm running these.
Yeah, there are lots of things that you can use. I think the OBS is another one which some of my US contacts use. But I think it's finding one that you like.
Yes, I think it's. We spent the weekend actually teaching grandmas to use video technology, on the fact that grandmas have to sit at home and we can't see them.
Yeah.
And get used to it. And we were debating. My father, unfortunately, has dementia and Alzheimer's, and is currently locked down in a nursing home. And we were debating whether it will completely baffle him if we did a video call, which probably would.
Yeah.
Being as if we went and didn't see him till December, he probably wouldn't remember the fact that we hadn't been for 10 months. Maybe the lesser of the options, but we're currently debating it.
Yeah.
But I was also there was also a couple of other. So house party was something that I was a young person basically suggested that I look at, which is because Zoom is very formal. The user interface is very formal. It's squares and it's very businesslike. Whereas house party is more young and zany. I don't know if you use that at all.
I've not used that one. No,
you didn't come up on the. I synced it with my Facebook friends, and you didn't come up. So
no,
too old probably, Phil. Just joking.
That's okay. No, it's not. No.
Yeah. So and now, why have you got a green screen behind you?
The green screen. Well, this is nothing from working from home. The green screen is quite a new development, because what I wanted to be able to do was just quickly jump on and do a video as and when the creative kind of, whatever came to me. I just want to do a video. And you'd be surprised when you work from home, when you just go to your camera and you look behind you and you see like a pile of washing or the cats or some teacups or something, that your house maybe isn't really set up for that. And although it's not that much hassle, it's another step that might get in the way of you just jumping on and doing something. So I'd seen a couple of other people use green screens, and I thought, well, for the one that I've got behind me, which I can put the make in the comments, whatever, or people can ask me, it was about £170. But it's changed everything, because it means that I can go to any meeting anywhere in the world, and I haven't got to think about where I am. I can project something on the back of it if I wanted to, but I don't tend to use it for that. Or I can change the color so it looks more corporate. But it just gives me, if I'm doing a video, I mean, some of you may have seen me do my music videos and I've had something behind me or something, it just gives an extra level of professionalism for actually not a lot of cost. But it also means you very quickly set up anywhere in your house where you're pointing your camera, and you very quickly, your professional setup is there. In fact, we did for Sue, we did a video for her Red Right Hand single, and that was all done in front of a green screen in our living room. And it would have just been too difficult, not too difficult, but it would have taken hours to try and film that in our house and make it look good. So a green screen, which might have been something that some people would have thought it's not something I would ever get around to use. Once you've got one, it actually opens up a whole world of possibilities. Yeah,
I was on calls this morning, and even and there's a kind of acceptance now that there's one person and they have to be in the spare bedroom, and one person they're in the kitchen, and one person, and I think though I think that we tend to give people leeway. I think there are people that are not as fortunate as us that are being squeezed into certain areas, and I think just having that and it must also, I mean, I don't know where it probably backs against the wall, but it could be the fact that you're then in an area and say, this is my workspace, and I think that you need to have that area and say, this is where I work.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, behind the screen actually is a table full of stuff. But which I think it also depends on where I'm turning up. So, for instance, I might go to, I mean, there was a hotel that had a marketing meeting monthly, and they'd all sit around the table, and then they'd stick a laptop at the end of the table where I would appear, because it was only my section, which is talking about SEO. They only needed me for about 15 minutes, and it seemed a bit mad to drive for an hour and a half just to go there to talk for 15 minutes and then an hour and a half drive back. So they agreed that I could just turn up via video link. But I was very aware that then I thought I'd turn up and they were all looking very official in their meeting, and I'd turn up like with the cat tree behind me and the curtains and everything, and it just kind of felt. Obviously, I work from home. Many people do, but I suddenly thought if I suddenly did get to a point where I was talking to a client in Paris or New York, I want to be more neutral. I'm being as professional as I can be, and so that's where the idea or the green screen was that if someone, and also so that if someone said, can we just jump on a video? It takes literally 2 minutes to set that up. So, but it also gives me lots of flexibility for any in-house video I do, because the other thing for all of you working at home is that we're talking now about microphones and webcams for what we're talking live now, me and Tim, but you'll probably find you want to create video that's actually pre-recorded, or maybe 80% of what you're going to do is pre-recorded, and you just kind of introduce it live, and then you roll a video as part of your little programming. And so all these little bits of kit help you produce a more professional offering in the long run. And
we don't know how long we're going to be locked down for and in self-isolating. No. And it could be, it could be next week. But it could be a number of months, and people may actually this may not be something that they want to do now, but they may want to think about it in July or August or something like that, because what will happen is that what I announced today is that there will be a tsunami of content on LinkedIn, because everybody's going to say, well, what we need to be doing is content. And what will happen is that LinkedIn will just fill with crappy content. And the only way that you're going to stand out is by being professional, obviously having some insight and some education in the way that you're providing the content. But if you can produce something which is more professional than everybody else, then you'll stand out.
Well, that's right. And some of you that look me up afterwards and look at some of the videos I've done, you'll see that, that I sometimes have my company logo behind me or something. And that's basically using the green screen. And these are all things I've just learned by going onto YouTube. So I know I mentioned earlier I did photography, and I also do videography now, but I'm self-taught. The internet is a wonderful thing, so you just go to YouTube and find out how to do a specific thing, how to do a chroma key, and there'll be someone somewhere who gives you a detailed description in 5 minutes. And it's just then having a go, really. But you're right, there's going to be a tsunami of content, and most of those will be people sitting on the end of their bed doing stuff, which is nothing wrong with that, but there'll be a lot of those. So it is about differentiating what you do. So sometimes you'll see me using my location as something that makes me stand out because of the seas in the background. But we can all do, even if you go and walk around the block, whether you're in an urban area and you use an iPhone with a gimbal, it's still, the gimbal is important because you're not wobbling. So many people do live videos and everything's shaking up and down. A gimbal, again, is about 100 quid. And makes a big difference. So it's thinking about what you can do to be professional without it becoming. Oh yeah,
because I've got a big phone, so the gimbal didn't work. Well, so I've got one of these, and it's got a mic. So that's about £15.
Yeah,
and that I think was £30 or £40.
Yeah. I mean it's a bit tangled up, this, and probably won't even be able to see it. But I use a little clip-on mic.
Oh yeah,
literally $9.99, and that just plugs into my phone. So that means if I'm out somewhere and it's really windy, they can still hear my voice. But so you want to have a level of professionalism that doesn't become an overhead that makes you think, oh God, I've got to do this, and this before I actually start. So it's a balance. So that it's making sure that whatever you do, you can set up really quickly.
Yeah. Good. Is there anything else you think we should talk about, Phil, in terms of your setup?
I don't think so. I mean, we've covered the visual aspect. We've covered the audio aspect.
Do you want to plug Phil's plug Sue's single again?
Yeah, Sue's released a single based on the Peaky Blinders theme called Red Right Hand, and that's out on all digital platforms. And
So it's on Spotify, because I found
it's on Spotify. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just search for Sue Aston and you'll find it.
Okay.
And just finally, if I could just say, for people who probably think about software as well.
Yeah.
There are lots of different platforms, but I use Adobe for a lot of my stuff. But also, as I said, Ecamm Live is very good. But just Google and find the platform that resonates with you, and just go with that.
Right. Cool. Phil, remind everybody where they can get hold of you.
You can get hold of me at Genius Loci, Genius Loci Media, and it's geniusloci.co.uk, GENIUSLOCI.co.uk.
And often, if they can find you, you're on LinkedIn.
I am.
Sue's on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Pinterest. There isn't a social platform. Even TikTok. We're everywhere.
You're even on TikTok now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're down with the kids.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. Phil, it's been fantastic. Good to see you again.
All right.
And I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Okay. Thanks very much, Tim. Thanks, you.
Phil. Bye.
Bye.